it is. A lot of people think we're twins, but we're not. We are sisters, but we're not twins. Yeah, quite a few people get us mixed up. Yeah. I get called Mel all the time, and he gets called Kim.
Kim, yeah.
And so,
I wasn't sure what I was going to do after Mel passed away, but I spoke to my mum, and my mum thought it was a good thing for me to do for myself, and for Melanie as well, and for the people around me.
What happened to Mel and Kim that brought an unstoppable energy to 80s pop?
Was it a tough decision getting started after Mel's death?
Yes, it was.
Making the top 10 of the chart with their songs Showing Out and Respectable. They also battled behind-the-scenes tensions with producers, tabloid scandals over Mel's past, and reoccurring cancer.
I wasn't enjoying what I was doing because I wasn't well, you know, so I went back to the doctors again. Then they told me that you're going to have to have treatment because you've got cancer in the bones, which is something that has to be dealt with chemotherapy.
So, what really happened? How did terminal sickness separate a duo, leaving one sister to carry both the grief and the legacy alone? Let's dive in.
These two girls, it was a fairy story. From Knicker Factory to #1.
For Kim Appleby, the years following Mel's death were a strange blend of remembrance, survival, and silence. She was half of something iconic, and suddenly, that half was gone. On stage, the space beside her was no longer filled with Mel's grin, her sharp moves, her fierce energy. What once felt like an electric sisterhood, their shared laughter, rehearsals, even the late-night planning sessions, now felt hollow. In interviews, Kim has often been candid about the emotional weight she carried. Performing songs that had been written with Mel for Mel and about their lives together was both cathartic and painful. "It felt like singing with a ghost," she once said, describing the feeling of stepping into the spotlight without her sister by her side. "I'd hear her in my head, finishing lines A, saying things only she would say."
She was just laughing. She just said, "It is what it is, Pete." And he just couldn't believe our attitude. East London girls. So, you know, it takes a lot to ruffle your feathers, really.
The public saw a solo artist trying to carry on smiling, giving interviews, releasing new music. But privately, Kim was navigating grief, identity, and the expectations that came with the Mel and Kim name. Every photo shoot, every music video was a reminder of what she had lost. She told Classic Pop magazine that revisiting the Mel and Kim era remains emotionally challenging, not because she regrets it, but because it brings everything back. The excitement, yes, but also the pain, the hospitals, the fear. Kim also spoke about how their sound, crafted under the guidance of producers Stock, Aitken, and Waterman, was beginning to feel restrictive even before Mel's illness worsened. The late 1980s pop formula was a hit-making machine, but it came at a creative cost. By that time, Kim explained, we would have gone on to find other producers. It had become very samey, formulaic. She and Mel wanted evolution, a sound that reflected their maturity and growing experience, not just chart-friendly tracks. That internal push for creative change revealed something many fans never saw. Mel and Kim weren't just manufactured pop stars. They were thinkers, co-writers, women who wanted control over their music. They were aware that their street-smart energy and edgy style were part of what made them special, something that couldn't be reproduced by any studio formula. When Mel passed, Kim not only lost a sister, but also the creative ally who shared her instincts, her humor, and her intuition. It made moving forward as a solo act both an act of courage and an act of grief. Every note she sang after 1990 was laced with both remembrance and resistance, a refusal to let Mel's name vanish into pop history.
Well, you know, as I say before, this whole mission is about Mel, you know, the Mel and Kim thing.
Now, before the glamour and fame, they were just two sisters from Hackney, Mel and Kim Appleby. Born to an English mother and a Jamaican father, they grew up in East London with dreams that stretched far beyond the city's gray skies. The older of the two, Kim Appleby, was born on August 28, 1961, while Melanie Susan Appleby, known simply as Mel, came 5 years later on July 11, 1966. Their mixed heritage and sharp London edge would later become part of this duo's distinctive charm. Authentic, relatable, and effortlessly cool. Mel's early years weren't easy. Before fame found her, she worked various jobs and even dabbled in glamour modeling to make ends meet. But she always had a spark, a natural stage presence, and a confidence that drew people in. In 1985, while trying to break into music, Mel recorded solo demos under the management of Alan Whitehead, a former drummer for the pop band Marmalade. Realizing the chemistry she had with her sister, Kim soon joined her in the studio. Together, their energy was undeniable. Their collaboration quickly caught the attention of Supreme Records, who saw potential in the sisters' fresh image and dynamic sound.
Mel and Kim are probably the first example of Stock Aitken Waterman really saying, you know, we won't just necessarily, you know, write some songs that sound like the latest American things coming in or whatever.
Around the same time, they were introduced to the production trio Stock Aitken Waterman, better known as SAW, who were behind a wave of British pop success stories in the mid-1980s, producing chart toppers for artists like Dead or Alive, Bananarama, and Rick Astley. Mel and Kim's streetwise authenticity paired perfectly with SAW's catchy pop formulas. The partnership was electric at first. In 1986, the duo released their debut single, Showing Out, Get Fresh at the Weekend. The track was bold, confident, and irresistibly danceable. It perfectly captured the essence of London club culture, which was stylish, rebellious, and unapologetically modern. The single climbed into the UK top 10, announcing Mel and Kim as the newest force in pop. Their look, cropped jackets, and streetwear-inspired outfits made them icons overnight. They weren't just singing about being fresh, they were fresh. But it was their follow-up single, Respectable, released in early 1987, that cemented their place in pop history. The song shot straight to #1, won on the UK singles chart, and became a worldwide hit. Yet, when fans began chanting it back to them during performances, they embraced it wholeheartedly. It became their signature sound, one of those instantly recognizable hooks that defined 1980s pop. That same year, their debut album, FLM, was released. The title stood for Fun, Love, and Money, a cheeky reflection of what they saw as the essentials of life. The album was pure pop perfection, glossy, rhythmic, and full of infectious dance tracks. It produced multiple hits and was certified platinum in the UK. Critics praised their confident vocals and vibrant chemistry, while fans adored their rebellious attitude and contagious sense of fun. By the end of 1987, Mel and Kim were on top of the world. They had chart-topping singles, a platinum album, international tours, and adoring fans from Tokyo to New York. Their music videos were all over MTV, their interviews filled with laughter and wit, and their image represented a new kind of British pop, bold, diverse, and dynamic. But even as the lights flashed brighter and the crowds grew louder, shadows were beginning to form behind the scenes. Beneath the polished choreography and catchy hooks, cracks were starting to appear. Creative tensions, personal struggles, and secrets that would soon threaten to unravel everything they had built.
I thought I'd go to the doctor, check it out. And they done an operation. It was about a 9-hour operation.
Major up.
Really?
And they said the lump was as big as a rugby ball. So,
Really?
yeah.
Now, behind the lights, laughter, and fame, something fragile was beginning to show. Even before Mel and Kim became household names, Melanie Appleby was quietly battling a life-threatening illness. In 1985, long before the world knew her as half of the dazzling pop duo, Mel was diagnosed with malignant paraganglioma, a rare form of cancer that had spread to her liver. After treatment, she recovered enough to pursue music, but the disease never truly went away. By early 1987, as Respectable climbed to the top of the charts, Mel began experiencing severe back pain and mobility problems. At first, it was blamed on the demanding schedule of endless rehearsals, flights, and performances, but the truth was far more serious. When the pain worsened during their promotional tour in Japan, Mel was forced to return home in a wheelchair. Tests revealed the cancer had returned, this time affecting her spine. Despite the devastating news, the sisters decided to keep Mel's illness a secret from the public. They told the media she had suffered a back injury or crushed vertebrae, hoping to avoid the cruel scrutiny that often followed such revelations. The tabloids were already relentless, digging up Mel's old glamour modeling photos from before her music career. When those pictures resurfaced, some journalists tried to paint her as scandalous, a move that could have damaged their image.
Done some Playboy pictures in the past, before we were famous, and of course they press dug them out. And her attitude was just brilliant. She was just like, there's nothing I can do about it.
Rather than hide from it, the sisters and their producers turned the situation into empowerment. Their hit single, Respectable, was, in many ways, a clever response to the gossip. The message was clear. They didn't care what others thought. Kim later revealed that when she first saw the song title Respectable in the studio, she burst out laughing, knowing exactly what it referred to. The song's cheeky, confident tone turned criticism into triumph, the ultimate comeback. Still, behind the hit-making magic, tensions were rising. Working with Stock Aitken Waterman, the same producers behind Kylie Minogue and Rick Astley, had guaranteed success, but it also meant creative control was limited. Mel and Kim had their own ideas about music, wanting to experiment with funkier and more urban sounds. Over time, they began to feel boxed in by SAW's pop formula. Kim once said they had grown tired of the predictable sound and dreamed of working with different producers. Even the production process caused disagreements. The famous Tay-Tay-Tay vocal intro on Respectable, added by Mike Stock, was something the sisters initially hated. They thought it sounded silly until they heard audiences in the Netherlands cheer wildly for it. The gimmick stayed, but the frustration over such creative choices hinted at deeper issues.
It was very nerve-wracking doing Top of the Pops, and I remember Mel and I hoping we weren't going to forget the dance routine.
As Mel's health worsened, the strain of fame became almost unbearable. She often recorded vocals while still undergoing treatment, even discharging herself from the hospital to meet deadlines. Despite everything, the sisters remained professional, appearing on TV and attending public events. Their resilience was remarkable. During European Cancer Week, they even took part in campaigns to raise awareness about teenage cancer wards, all while keeping Mel's own condition a secret.
For Mel Kim in 88.
1988. Well, when that's coming out, Melanie is unwell at this time. Melanie's unwell at this time. We've taken a back seat. I'm looking after Melanie. Melanie's living with me.
But the combination of illness, exhaustion, and creative frustration was taking a toll. The pressure to maintain their image, the pain Mel endured privately, and the constant intrusion from the media all began to wear them down. Even within their record label, not everything was smooth. One major controversy surrounded the FLM music video. Instead of featuring Mel and Kim, much of the video used puppet-like lookalikes, marionettes controlled by strings. The sisters were furious when they saw it. They hadn't been consulted, and both felt it mocked them rather than represented their vibrant personalities. Nick East from Supreme Records later admitted the concept was a mistake, but by then, the damage was done. The tension between the sisters, the label, and the production team was undeniable. By the end of 1987, behind the smiles and glamour, Mel and Kim were fighting silent battles, creative ones, personal ones, and above all, a fight for Mel's life. The glittering dream that had begun with so much hope was starting to show deep, painful cracks.
I think the thing with Mel and I is what you saw is what you got. We never forgot where we came from, and we never tried to be something that we weren't.
By mid-1988, the signs of exhaustion were clear. The once lively, ever-present duo of Mel and Kim began to withdraw from the spotlight. Public appearances grew fewer, interviews were postponed, and performances were quietly canceled. To the outside world, it looked like they were taking a well-deserved break after a whirlwind rise to fame. But behind closed doors, Mel's health was deteriorating rapidly.
I started feeling really weak, tired all the time. And I thought, I shouldn't be feeling like this, you know. I wasn't enjoying what I was doing because I wasn't well.
Her cancer had returned with full force, spreading to her spine. The pain that had begun as a dull ache now made it almost impossible for her to move without discomfort. Despite aggressive treatment, her condition worsened, forcing both sisters to pull back from the limelight. Still, Mel was determined not to let the illness define her. Even as she underwent rounds of chemotherapy, she continued to write music with Kim. The sisters spent long hours at home crafting new songs, heartfelt lyrics, and ideas they hoped would shape their second album. These songs were deeply personal, reflecting their shared journey through fame, fear, and sisterhood. But the new material never reached the studio under the Mel and Kim name. The project stalled indefinitely as Mel's condition left her too weak to record or perform. Some of those songs would later resurface in Kim's solo career, carrying echoes of what could have been their next chapter together.
We found ourselves at home with nothing to do, you know, so the result was we started to write, and
discovered you
the result is an album,
Yeah.
Exactly, discovered that we could do it, yeah.
As Mel's health declined, so did their ability to keep up the illusion of normalcy. There were arguments about how much of the truth to reveal, tension over postponed projects, and moments of silence that spoke louder than words. The phone calls from producers and journalists often went unanswered.
We kept it very
just within the family.
Within the family.
Yeah.
Of course, the label knew, and of course, the boys knew, as in Stock Aitken and Waterman. But no one outside knew. And
Kim became her sister's anchor, juggling her own grief and frustration while shielding Mel from the relentless curiosity of the press. She knew the world saw them as a brand, but to her, Mel was more than half of a pop duo. She was her best friend, her partner in every sense, and the person who had shared the highs and lows of a journey that had barely begun. By late 1988, it was evident that Mel and Kim, as the world knew them, might never return. The once vibrant energy that had defined their performances had faded into quiet hospital rooms and long nights filled with worry. The music industry, however, kept moving forward. New acts were being signed, new hits released, and the sisters, who had once dominated the charts, were now facing their hardest, most private battle. The silence between releases became deafening. The public waited for a comeback that never came, unaware that behind the closed doors of Mel's London home, the fight for her life was reaching its most painful stage. The sparkle of their success had dimmed, and though the love between the sisters never wavered, their journey together was slowly, heartbreakingly drawing to an end. By 1989, the vibrant laughter and energy that once defined Mel and Kim had faded into quiet hospital corridors and whispered conversations. But by late 1989, even hope was beginning to fade. The chemotherapy had taken its toll on Mel's body. Her immune system was severely weakened, and she was prone to infections. Her once strong voice had softened. The sparkle in her eyes dimmed. The girl who had danced across global stages and smiled through flashing cameras was now fighting for each breath. Then, in January 1990, tragedy struck. Mel caught a common cold that rapidly turned into pneumonia, an infection her fragile immune system couldn't fight off. On the 18th of January 1990, Melanie Susan Appleby passed away at the age of just 23. The official cause was pneumonia, brought on by complications from her chemotherapy treatments.
Mel of Mel and Kim has died tragically after a long struggle against cancer. Mel and Kim had several top 10 hits in 1987, such as Respectable and Fun, Love and Money.
The news of her death sent shockwaves through the music industry and devastated fans worldwide. The outpouring of grief was immense. Newspapers ran headlines mourning the loss of Britain's pop princess, and tributes flooded in from artists, producers, and fans alike. Stock, Aitken, and Waterman, the production team that helped catapult the sisters to fame, released a statement expressing their sorrow and admiration for her strength. But for Kim Appleby, no public tribute could capture the magnitude of her personal loss. Mel's death left Kim shattered. She had not only lost her younger sister, but also her closest friend, creative partner, and emotional anchor. Together, they had navigated fame, fought the pressures of the music industry, and stood side by side through both celebration and crisis. Now, Kim faced a new reality, one marked by silence where Mel's voice used to be. The funeral was private, attended by close family, friends, and a few colleagues from the industry. Kim, though broken, remained composed, carrying herself with quiet dignity. She later described that period as numbness wrapped in noise, the sound of condolences, the hum of news reports, the endless echoes of songs that once defined their shared dream. For months after, Kim disappeared from the public eye. She needed time to grieve, to heal, and to understand how to move forward without her sister. The house they had once shared felt empty, filled only with memories, recording tapes, handwritten lyrics, unfinished songs. Among them were pieces they had written together in Mel's final months. Songs meant for their next album, songs that would now never be released under the Mel and Kim name. Yet, even in her sorrow, Kim felt a quiet push to keep going to honor Mel in the way she would have wanted, through music.
Of course, I have a huge responsibility with the brand, so that's why I don't do interviews very often, and I'm known not to do this stuff very often, and it's not me being difficult or trying to shy away from.
In late 1990, just a while after losing her sister, Kim Appleby did something extraordinary. She stepped back into the spotlight, not as one half of Mel and Kim, but as a solo artist. Her debut single, Don't Worry, was more than just a pop song. It was a message of resilience, a reminder that life, though painful, could still move forward. The song was co-written by Kim and Mel before Mel's passing, making it a deeply personal tribute as well as a continuation of their shared artistry. Don't Worry struck a powerful emotional chord with listeners. The lyrics carried hope, but also an undercurrent of grief. Fans knew the story behind it. They could feel the bittersweet tone in every line. The track soared to number 2 on the UK singles chart, proving that Kim's voice, both literally and metaphorically, could still resonate strongly even after such a devastating loss. Her debut solo album, Kim Appleby, followed in November 1990. Many of its tracks were songs she and Mel had begun writing together, including Don't Worry and Mama. The album served as both a farewell and a fresh start. Critics praised it for its honesty and emotional depth, describing it as a pop record with a heart and a story behind every note. For Kim, it was an act of healing, a way to channel her pain into purpose.
Lonely as well, you know, because we'd have a laugh together. But
Yes.
as I say, you know, I'm so determined to get it right and the songs to be heard that.
The success of Don't Worry was followed by another hit, GLAD, in early 1991, which reached the UK top 10. It had a more upbeat tone, reflecting Kim's attempt to reclaim joy and confidence. The single's title, standing for Good Lovin' and Devotion, hinted at her effort to keep the spirit of Mel and Kim alive, vibrant, positive, and full of life. But as the years went on, maintaining that level of success proved difficult for Kim. Kim's second album, Breakaway, 1993, was released with limited promotion and didn't reach the same commercial heights as her debut. Songs like Light of the World and Free Spirit were well received critically, but failed to make a major impact on the charts. The music scene had shifted. New genres like grunge and R&B were taking over the airwaves, and the bubblegum pop sound that defined the 80s was fading. Despite that, Kim continued to write and perform. She never chased fame for its own sake. Instead, she focused on music that felt authentic. Over time, she became more reflective about her past, occasionally giving interviews about her sister and their career.
And I'm very protective of the brand, so I always think, okay, how would this work? Would Melanie have liked this? Would this have been something that we would have done together?
Would she have done this?
But she always chose her words carefully, guarding her private memories. She once said in an interview, "People ask about Mel all the time, but some things I keep as my little secret. They belong to us." Behind the scenes, Kim also became an advocate for cancer awareness, lending her voice to causes that supported research and young people facing the same battles her sister had endured. She made occasional public appearances, paying tribute to Mel during special performances or anniversary celebrations of their music. By the mid-1990s, Kim's recording output slowed down, but her influence endured. The music of Mel and Kim began to find new life in nostalgia circuits, dance compilations, and remixes. Their tracks, particularly Respectable and Showing Out, continued to appear on radio playlists and 1980s revival shows. Fans who grew up with their music passed it on to new generations, proof that while Mel's life had been cut short, her impact was lasting. Kim's resilience was admired by many. She had weathered unimaginable loss and still found strength to keep her sister's memory alive through song. In later years, she reflected on their shared journey with pride, even if it was tinged with sorrow. In her words, "We had our time. It was short, but it was magical. Mel's spirit is still with me every time I sing." Even decades later, the story of Mel and Kim remains both heartbreaking and inspiring. A tale of two sisters who broke barriers, brought joy to millions, and faced the harshest realities with grace and courage. Their sound, their style, and their story became a symbol of youthful ambition, female strength, and the fragility of fame. When Don't Worry plays today, listeners can still feel that echo, the voice of two sisters united by love, separated by tragedy, but forever bound by music. But there's always that lingering what if. What if Mel had survived? What if the sisters had been able to evolve beyond the stock Aitken and Waterman sound? Kim herself has wondered aloud in interviews, imagining a version of their career where they transitioned into more soulful, experimental work, maybe writing for others, maybe exploring film or activism.